Pack Nation? Welcome back for part 2, baby, of this preview here of the NC State versus Syracuse game. Obviously got myself, Layden, and Greg the Leg here, and we got Owen Valentine here with Locked On Syracuse. So if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, make sure to check that out first, as that is a must-do, so that way you can basically see how we got up until this point, and then make sure to tune right back in here. As again, we're going to be getting into now talking a little bit about the injury situation with NC State, talk a little bit about predictions, talk a little bit about the rivalry between God, and I just see now that we just started, I just totally blanked on Jim Boeheim. We're gonna talk a little bit about Jim Boeheim and his famous rivalry with the location of the ACC tournament. So again, and I'm joking, but I'm not. Like, Owen, like, what does this man got to understand? At the end of the day, nobody wants to come up north to play in the ACC men's basketball tournament. It just no one wants
to travel. All right, both sides. No one wants to travel. Yeah. All right, Boeheim's just looking for a close game. I think I love the environment down there, so I have no issue with it being down south and staying where it's supposed to be. But Boeheim apparently he misses his games up north and playing his MSG Big East tournaments. And wants to bring it back up, I guess.
That's true.
But I hear New York City in March is beautiful. Said no one.
Yeah, I mean, you get the wonderful. It's beautiful as the snow falls, and then it turns to slush, and the city takes back over.
I was there for a couple years ago when they did it at Barclays, and you're exactly right. It was slushy, snowy. It was gross. Yeah. Like it's in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. No offense to anyone from Brooklyn listening tonight. Whatever. So, anyway.
Yeah. No, it just is what it is. So, but again, I mean, Owen, by all means, any interest whatsoever in going back to the Big East instead of the ACC?
Look, I love the Big East and the old Big East. If it was the Big East the way it was, I would say yes. But you'd have to do a lot of recruiting to make it worthwhile. But Syracuse right now, I think they have dipped significantly in every regard since joining the ACC. It seems like basketball was at a peak right as they came in. And has dipped, and football, I guess, was never really great, but football has struggled outside of a year in terms of the recent, and I speak never great in terms of my lifetime. I'm not knocking the old days of prime Syracuse football where you were getting the best running backs and just the running back history up until probably, the year I was born, I guess. Things went south.
But in fairness to Syracuse, you're not the only Big East school that we took on in the ACC that's done nothing since joining. So
it's not been a good look.
You have that
for the Big East.
No.
Yeah, no, true. But yeah, obviously got to jump into it, because I know all NC State fans are going, why didn't you talk about this in the first part? But again, don't worry, we're going to talk about this right here. That again, we're recording this on October 9th. So again, as of right now, all we know about Devin Leary up until this point is that his x-rays came back negative, but he had an MRI today. We'll find out tomorrow during Doran's press conference if he's going to be available or not. I've heard all kinds of different theories, whether it's, and again, I won't even throw out theories because by the time this comes out, we'll know one way or the other. But it could be very minimal. It could be season ending, but we'll find out. Either way, I think.
No, I was to say before we get too far in it, I just wanted to maybe talk about the series history a little bit. Just kind of bring it up. Yeah. So
we're gonna tease them a little bit more. I like it. Go ahead, Greg.
So historically, State, I believe we did this on our podcast a couple weeks ago. I think Syracuse is our all-time best winning percentage. Granted, the sample size is small.
Of course it is.
Sorry, Owen. We're just going to keep stomping on you. We'll probably kick your dog while we're at it.
That's,
so,
right. You're not saying anything that we're not saying on our end.
But again, the sample size is small. We're 13-2 all time against Syracuse. The current win streak is 3, so we won the last 3 matchups. At home, we're 7-1, and on the road, we're 6-1. So pretty evenly matched there. But yeah, the last 10 matchups were 8-2, and we averaged scoring 32.27 points a game. So there you go. Take it for what you want.
But it's not been great.
But again,
it's not been great. All right, we get it. You told us it's 13-2 all time. The last win was 2018 when Syracuse has a good year for their, I guess that was their blue moon of the last decade. They beat teams that year, so you were not alone that season. If I remember, that was the Tommy DeVito game where he comes in and saves the day, and Syracuse thought they had their golden boy, and then the next 2 seasons, Syracuse realized that was a fluke. But apparently now with Illinois, Tommy DeVito is a good quarterback again. So that has been the whole ordeal. But yes, the win.
I mean, they won 9-6 yesterday. I wouldn't say he's a great quarterback.
Thank you. He's been better. We have no I have no issues with him. I like that he's winning. It just is. It's nice to see for the kid. But we definitely thought that when we looked at Tommy DeVito, we had something after that. And then I think the following week he came in against North Carolina and did the same thing. Came in for like a drive and scores a touchdown and was just the momentum boost that Syracuse needed in getting to 10 wins. But since then, it's been back to, I guess, sort of what this whole series has been. Last year was a stomping. 2020 was close-ish. I was at that game in the Dome with press when no one was allowed there. That was a fun game. It was close, but it's been
how interesting watching a game in a dome with nobody there. It's pretty weird.
I say the weirder one. I'll go to basketball quickly, but their season opener they played Bryant in the Dome and almost lost. But Bryant comes out and Syracuse comes and they throw a lob from half court and probably one of the best alley-oops I've ever seen in front of me live or even on TV, I will say at the college level. Just a beautiful pass from half court. Alan Griffin comes up, rises, throws it down, gorgeous. And the place was just stone cold silent. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever witnessed. Like I was going nuts at the table. I was doing color commentary for the game. And I'm sitting there like hands up, ready to go berserk. And I open the headphone as I'm used to. I pull the headset back and it's just like some of the players were like, yeah. And it was silent. I was like, oh my God, this makes no sense. But it was the weirdest of atmospheres in terms of silence. And then I know it was a little bit different. Like I went to that Clemson game when Syracuse played in that 2020 season and they were, I believe, 25% capacity. So it was a little bit more, there was some normalcy in terms of you hear sounds when things were happening. But 200 and 300 guys and staff can only make so much noise in a football game that environment is never something that you can get used to.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true. So now we're going to really get into it here talking about here. So again, obviously a lot of this, it comes with huge asterisks because again, and literally about, give or take, 16 hours from now, we're going to find out what's going to happen here with Devin Leary. But either way, even if Dorn does say the best case scenario, which sounds like to me probably would be kind of like a sore shoulder, bruised maybe shoulder, day-to-day. Maybe day to day, or worse comes worse, torn pec and out for the season, So to me, I guess, Owen, let's talk about the better case scenario, saying that, he ends up playing and starting for Syracuse. That I still will not be 100% sold that State wouldn't go into that game with a change in the offensive philosophy, just to because then at the end of the day, obviously college football is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And obviously, we have Jack Chambers, who was, a 4-year starter, previously, and then, came here because he wanted to kind of have a change of pace, from Charleston Southern. And so, I mean, he's a guy that, he's not your normal backup quarterback. He's got experience and he's mobile. He can throw the ball not pretty well, very well. And I think that, obviously the Florida State game was kind of a weird one because, obviously Devin Leary went down. So it was like oh crap, what are we going to do now? But, hopefully with, having a week to prepare, Tim Beck can step up,
reps,
and get some reps and put together some packages to make him successful. So, but I think it's kind of a funny thing because, if you're Syracuse, I think now all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't necessarily know what to prepare for now, because it could be a huge range. Like you could see Devin Leary none, you could see Devin Leary some, or even if they say he's not playing, are they going to run the ball a lot like they did against Florida State? Are they going to pass more? Like, it's who knows?
And here's the one thing I'll add before you answer that, Owen. Dave Doeren could hold all this close to his vest and just not say anything with a little gamesmanship. so that way it makes Syracuse prepare for both quarterbacks. But anyway, what are your thoughts there, Owen?
I think that you're 100% correct. If I'm not giving any information on this, and that would be a Dino Babers move, because Dino, I don't think, has ever given a piece of information out ever before the absolute last second. If you ask him a question in a press conference, he will give you a metaphor to anything humanly possible, but he will not answer that question. But I think that this is definitely a tough spot for Syracuse. And we mentioned it in the first episode, how Syracuse is coming off the bye and they have the benefit of 2 weeks to prepare for NC State. And now you can really have to look back and reevaluate that first week of prep, depending on how much it was, incredibly specific to NC State, or just more so rights to the season stuff, new schemes, new packages, things that you want to add and continue expanding this new playbook, because it's only right. You got most of the team for Syracuse with a new offensive coordinator's only known this scheme for like 6 months, honestly. So they're continuing to work on expanding this playbook a little bit. So hopefully, if you're Syracuse, that was the focus of week one, a lot more than let's prepare for everything that you can get from Devin Leary and see what's going on there. I think you have to prepare for both. And it's tough because Chambers does bring a little bit of a different approach, I think, in his mobility. And I watch him move a little bit, and I think that's something that could cause Syracuse some issues. I know they did well with containing Malik Cunningham and his mobility in week one, but we've also seen that, as we said in episode 1, could be a nod more to what Louisville did and how that team actually is than how good Syracuse is containing. And Syracuse has had a couple of guys, fall down since then in terms of big defensive names. So a guy like Terry Lockett or Stephon Thompson have both, gotten hurt either in that Louisville game or in weeks since. So there's definitely a different defensive look, which makes this even more difficult for Syracuse. But I think it puts them in a tough spot right now to have to prepare for both, because you really do need 2 different schemes to go after 2 different quarterbacks. Even if the general scheme from the Wolfpack is going to look the same, there are going to be enough changes that you've got to be ready for both options.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add too is, State's coming into this game potentially with a lot of injuries on the offensive side. We took a big hit last night, losing Devin Carter and then Demi Sumo, and of course Devin Leary. So again, depending on their situations, this could be a very different offensive scheme. With that being said, as well.
Now, the one thing which I will add, though, is that at least from Trent Penix's tweet, it seems like he is going to be back against Syracuse, which would be a huge addition for NC State for sure. Being a great Swiss Army knife, J Sam of a sort, guy that can block, and line up as a tight end, line up as an H back, line up in the slot, even wherever you need him. And he's got speed, he's got size. So I think he'll be a great weapon to finally get back. But at least again, and by this point we'll know where we are with Devin Carter and Demi Sumo. But from what we have right now, it doesn't seem like anything too serious. Correct. I know that from Demi Sumo and Devin Carter that you could see them walking up and down the sidelines, not a problem. Yep. So I think it was more preventative of anything really than necessarily a must, really necessarily per se a pull. But and especially too when Jack Chambers went in and you knew that you were going to be running the ball a lot more than passing. It's like, okay, then let's just put Julian Gray and Keon Lassane out there and let them deal with it instead of having putting Devin Carter in harm's way. But again, it'll be interesting to see, because I know, and obviously Owen, we could talk plenty about the frustrations with the play calling for sure. So I think honestly, for me, this is a huge game for Tim Beck, because at the end of the day, if we're going to get by this, it's a great Syracuse defense. If we're going to get by this great Syracuse defense, we have to put ourselves in a position to win. And it's not a normal of that fact that he's going to have Devin Leary 100%. Because either way, even if Devin Leary is playing, I'm not sold at all that he's playing the full snaps. I fully see there's some packages that are going to be there for Jack Chambers to get in there. At the end of the day, he's a weapon, and you got to use him, especially in this game, because it's a big opportunity to get a top 20 win on the road. It's a huge game for both teams. So, so Owen, I guess kind of leading into kind of my next question is, if you're NC State how would you beat Syracuse's defense? Where do you see Syracuse's weakness on the
So one
defense
of the
side?
things that has been the issue, and I think I talked about it a little bit, but that we really had the most questions about coming into the season with this defense had to do with the defensive line and their ability. They're sort of the least experienced group that Syracuse has had, or that they have on the defense, and it's been something that you're sort of looking at to see what they can do. And they've had their work cut out for them, and I think they've done a pretty good job this year at holding their own. But I think the run game and being able to mix is going to be something that will really benefit NC State in terms of attacking this defense. The secondary for Syracuse is outstanding, and I think I would put them in the conversation of being possibly, especially when you look at the cornerbacks, the best in the ACC. They deserve to be in that conversation. I think the way they've performed and what they've done in the past. So their secondary has been strong all season. I think there's one or two plays where maybe they've been burnt, but they really have held the expectations and lived up to the expectations. I think you're going to have to be able to show different looks and get after it with the run game, because you're going to need a dual look to be able to work with this defense, to work against this defense, because of how effective they've been against the pass, and they've really held. And two of these games, it's a nod to who they played, but they have held offenses that can put up numbers to lower numbers, I guess. And then you look at Purdue, which is the only team that's performing, and O'Connell and Charlie Jones went off for, I think, 200 yards as a passing catching duo. So you can beat them in the air, but it's a lot tougher to do that only. So having that dual look and getting the ground game going is going to be huge, because that is how you're going to be able to exploit the D line a little bit. And find those gaps and be able to get those chunk plays, especially in early down situations, that will allow you to take those deeper shots and have the ability to take your chances against a better secondary.
Yeah. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. And then, kind of changing gears and kind of jumping to the other side here. So obviously, one guy we haven't talked a lot about, and Sean Tucker, again, I mean, obviously, talked to, in the first part about, how there's no doubt he is a great talent, probably one of the most talented, definitely one of the most talented running backs in the AC, and definitely probably in the country as well. So I got to first kind of ask, do you look forward at all to Sean Tucker's post-game tweets at all, as much as we do? Or
Sean has the best Twitter account that you could find. I
he
always
does. Maybe of all time.
Fun.
It's great.
So fun. I always feel like he reminds me of like a dad tweeting about their son's game. Like it's the Facebook post almost after the game, is just the way it mentally reads to me. And it is, I love that he's embraced it now, and he's got all of this pleased merch that he's putting out. And we've got, I think it's the Sean Tucker pleased tracker. So how pleased he was with his performance. They look at every game. There have been 2 pleased, 1 kind of pleased, and 1 I'm not pleased. It might be 3 pleased actually at this point, but it is my favorite thing to look at. But he has been incredible for Syracuse. And as we talked about a little bit, the history with the running backs, and, alluding to the glory days, I guess, of Syracuse football, he sort of is that return to Syracuse having, a top tier running back in college football, and having that dominance at the position. He's had a couple of games this year where he's struggled to get his mark, and we say struggled pretty generously, just based on, what he's done in last season and the games that we've seen him play this year. I think he was held to 100 yards against Virginia, and he was devastated about that because he fumbled as well. So it's just like a weird dynamic of, he has put up these numbers game after game after game, and it's weird to see that he's not pleased. It was 105 yards, all-purpose yards against Virginia, and he didn't score, and he fumbled, and that was, I think, the worst game that he's played in a while for Syracuse. But he is outstanding. Yep. He gets his fill. And I think a lot of people in Syracuse and Central New York and just Syracuse fans in general are okay with, I guess, the true numbers cut. And it's a generous cut because it's really not that much of a cut this year, but he's not have those dominant games, I guess, against the two bigger opponents that they played in Purdue and Virginia. But I think that it is a nod to just the defensive attention that he feels and warrants based on the numbers that he's had. So this is a game as well. I've got, a number of different things where this is the game that will tell me blank. But this is a game with NC State where I'm curious to see how a better defense approaches Sean Tucker. And because I think that State has the ability to not have to pack the box as much and be as true, pure focus on Sean Tucker and play a little bit truer of a defense to what, you would traditionally play. And that is going to tell me a lot about what Sean can do in that situation. And also as a nod to what Garrett Schrader can do when the defensive focus is a little bit more, or can be a little bit more on the passing game and a true defensive scheme that would be, traditional to how NC State would go into any game and not really have to completely adjust everything. So Sean's been bad in quotes, I guess, but he's still outstanding. He put up 210 rushing yards, albeit against Wagner last week in the first half. He had 210 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half. And Dino Babers, this is where I get angry with Dino, puts him back in the second half, and he goes down. And he's fine, but Dino puts him back in, and he goes into the medical tent on that first drive out of the second half. And that set Syracuse Twitter aflame in a 50-point football game. It is crazy to have the ability to set a fan base off as quickly as that happened in the second half.
Wow.
So sticking with Sean Tucker last year, I know he gashed us decently last year. He averaged almost or just over 8 yards a carry last year, and he had over 100 yards. And I think he was probably maybe one of two running backs, maybe 3 that got over 100 yards on our defense. And the last couple of years we've been really good on the rush defense. But that is one area that definitely concerns me coming up is can we contain Sean Tucker? But looking at some of the stats as well, you guys are pretty balanced as far as the ACC leaderboard. You guys are I think 5th in points a game, just over 38. And granted, you kind of touched it a little bit, but that Wagner game kind of inflated those numbers.
Yeah.
But you're 5th in rushing and 6th in passing as far as offensive ACC leaderboard. So just kind of speak to the balance a little bit of the offense. You guys are, handling your business on both facets of that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think when you look at Syracuse and you looked at what they did last year, and they ran the football last year, that was the only thing that they really could do because it was tough to have success through the air. Schrader 100% struggled passing last year. And DeVito, I believe, started 2 games before Schrader took over. So it was just that weird. There was nothing going in the passing game, and it was atrocious. And I think we had a discussion preseason about what was more likely, Syracuse to have 35 rushing touchdowns this year or for them to pass for 10, which was just our joke because of how bad the passing game was last year. And we heard in ACC Media Day that this new offensive scheme was going to be an air raid. And that threw us off a lot because we were not prepared for that or to hear that as a phrase, but they really have embraced it. Not necessarily a true air raid, but they have embraced the passing game a lot more than we really anticipated. And I think it's worked well for them to be able to have that balance, especially given how mobile Schrader is as a quarterback as well. So to be able to have the ability to pass and the passing success that they've had in terms of accuracy and completion percentage, not necessarily huge plays, but that accuracy has been a big deal, and it's forcing defenses to have to stay and not be able to contain Schrader as much as maybe you'd hoped. And Schrader's been able to break off for some longer runs. So that balance has definitely helped this offense as a whole because it allows them to play off of the ability that, they have in terms of you have to be prepared for Sean Tucker to get the ball on every play. But you also now have to be worried about a passing game that is still up in the air. We're not exactly sure how good or how bad it is, but has shown that it's something that Syracuse is going to continue to do and something that they want to do and are going to mix in at all points throughout that game. Plus the mobility of Schrader. I think sort of that trio of things works well for this offense and helps that balance out. There's a chance NC State comes in and exploits the offense and what they've done. And I think that in my mind, it could be a little more than a chance. I think a lot of things are going to be pointed out about this offense and maybe some of the holes that are still there in this game. But I do think that balance, as much as it was a surprise to see the emphasis on the passing game, given the question marks about receivers, given the ability for Schrader to throw the ball or lack thereof from last season, it has been really nice to see that there is a return to balance and some sort of equilibrium, because you can run the ball a heck of a lot better if there is a threat of passing.
Right.
And it just gives you so much more space, even if
it keeps the defense honest.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been a good balance for them, but I am curious to see what this week and the next, month or so of football says about what Syracuse will go to when times get tough and when games get tougher and when defenses have a lot more ability.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure probably when you heard that quote from Dino, you probably wanted to pull him over and be like, "Are you sure you didn't meant to say triple option instead of air raid? Because we are way closer to triple option than
air
we are
raid
air raid
was
right
not
now."
the term we were anticipating by any means.
Yeah. All right. So now kind of to wrap it up here. So we've done it with pretty much every, preview is obviously give kind of our score predictions. And I know, Owen, like when we did ours with Clemson, they actually didn't want to do it because they were going to release their predictions, score predictions in their own episode at a later time, which, to each their own. That's cool. So definitely not pressuring you here whatsoever, but again, just to kind of give the background right now before we kind of give our official prediction. So right now it actually shows Syracuse is a 5-point favorite, the over under at 44, which to me, I'll be honest right now, I think 44 is a little low. I think honestly, I think it's low actually. I think it's low. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a shootout, honestly.
Actually, so for me, before we get too far, for me, it depends on the quarterback. If Leary's playing,
well, exactly,
but
I even think too. Again, I don't know. I just got a gut feeling here, but again, it'll be interesting though. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, because I'm sure that 5 point towards Syracuse is with the expectancy that Devin Leary is not playing. But I think if he is playing, it's more of kind of a pick'em game, honestly, in my head. So
I would say right now, I can't bet on Syracuse in New York State legally, but it's not the worst idea to throw on NC State +5 while it's still up in the air. And if the Leary news is in favor of NC State, then you're going to get a lot of points to work with that you wouldn't have otherwise. If I were to, I will give a prediction here, and I will give a prediction on our Friday episode. And there's a chance they're not the same. And I would say probably a good chance they're not the same. But I will give you my current spot in terms of my prediction.
Your Sunday prediction.
My Sunday prediction. And I am 5 for 5 predicting Syracuse games so far this year. Which has not been all too tough. I just predicted a win so that the crowd and the Syracuse faithful didn't come after me. But I'm going to be – I think this is an NC State win. I think Syracuse can hold their own in here in terms of the score, not necessarily in terms of direct comparison. I'm going to put this at maybe it's not the greatest score. 31-17 NC State. So I guess I will take the over even with the quarterback situation. And
I
don't like that number actually. 27-14. Same margin.
Okay.
Different score. Not the same margin.
Different combo.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that one better. 27-14.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, for me, I kind of look at it as, again, I mean, again, this is Sunday, this is 6 days before. And at the end of the day, I think this is definitely a game where who knows, who knows what's going to happen with Jack Chambers and Devin Leary? Who knows what's going to happen? Do we get Tyler Baker-Williams back on the defensive side? I think if he does come back, that's huge.
No shy battle
Devin
for the
Carter,
first half though.
no shining battle first half, but cornerback is definitely a place we're pretty deep.
Agreed.
So I'm not too worried about that necessarily. But yeah, I mean, does Trent Penix officially come back? Things like that. But for the time being, I do honestly see it as a little bit of a higher game. I really do. I don't know why, but that's where I just have it. So I'm gonna say 27. But I'm going to say 21. I'm going to say 27-21.
I don't hate that.
27-21 NC State. Yeah, I think it's a little bit higher than the over/under right now. So, Greg, what you got?
Yeah, for me, it all boils down to the quarterback situation. I think obviously that's the elephant in the room. I think if you give Chambers a week to prepare, I did like what I saw with his legs. It's a different dynamic that we haven't seen the last couple of years with Leary, with being pretty much a pure pocket passer. I think Tim Beck will get some play call, get him out on the edge, give him run option, pass things. I think we're man, I don't know. Like, I'm so torn on this. I think State does win. I think they win. I think we stay under. And I'm probably going to go 21-17, 20-17, something like that. I think it'll be a low-scoring defensive affair. I think Syracuse has got a really good defense they don't get enough credit for. The crowd noise could be a thing with the dome. There sounds like you're having a good crowd there. Jack Chambers has not played on the road, so that could be a problem if it is Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna be low. I think we do win, but I don't know. I'm nervous. I'm actually more nervous about this game than any of the other games, including Clemson.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a good thing to hear for Syracuse. But I will say that the noise, they have not sold the number of tickets that they've been looking for in a couple of these games, despite being undefeated. But I believe a Purdue reporter said it was the loudest atmosphere he's ever been in the Dome for Purdue. Which going through Big Ten play, I would take that as very much a compliment in Central New York.
Absolutely.
I will give you this. Sure. This game gets out of hand if NC State can be a presence in Syracuse's backfield. The O-line is exploitable, very much so. They're the weakest link of this team right now, and they can definitely bite themselves. I think they're 10th or the 7th most penalty yards in the country. And everyone with more penalty yards has played an extra game. So they are disgustingly bad in terms of penalty yards, and the O-line has been tough, and they are definitely exploitable, and Schrader reverts back to previous tendencies when under pressure. So if you can pressure Schrader, this game will be a nightmare for Syracuse, and could be a much bigger margin than any of us predicted down the run if that's the case.
Yeah. For me, and again, this is just me, I'm definitely no football expert by any means, and definitely not a football expert or defense expert, whatever it is. But to me, honestly, from what I've seen, especially too with the fact that you have Peyton Wilson and Drake Thomas on the edges, who are two of the best blitzing and overall linebackers in the country, but definitely blitzing wise. I mean, they give you speed, they give you the power factor. I mean, they can lay the body. And so to me, I'm almost, what I want to do is every single time Tony Gibson rushes 3, I want to put a shock collar around his ankle that, gives him a, 100-volt, shock. Cause I mean, there's no reason whatsoever, man. You should be, and because especially too, since our secondary is very strong, it's like, how are you not confident enough to say, okay, within 3 or 4 seconds, we're going to get to this quarterback. And for those 3 or 4 seconds, I feel confident enough in the secondary that they're going to hold on to the receiver for 3 to 4 seconds while we get to this guy. And if we can get him, we're going to get into his head, and we're going to take advantage of this game at an early stage.
Yeah.
So and especially too, since just like you said, we're going to find out a lot about Garrett Schrader. It's like we saw what he was last year, where he wasn't really much of a passer last year. Maybe he hasn't taken as much of a step. Let's find out.
Yeah.
Let's bring 5 or 6 from the very beginning, and we'll find out very quickly. If he really is, a lot better, or if he maybe is just a little bit better. We'll find out. So, but again, it's going to be exciting. Obviously, I think it's going to be a great game for sure. Obviously it's exciting. I know you were actually even saying before we started, so this is Syracuse's first top 20 matchup in the Dome. Since how long?
It is the first time 2 ranked football teams have played in the Dome since 2001.
So 21
It's been over 20 years since the last time there's been a ranked matchup at the Carrier Dome. Well, the JMA Wireless.
Yeah, JMA Wireless, whatever that means.
Sorry. New branding, same place. That actually took getting rid of, this is such low-hanging fruit for a joke, but it took getting rid of the air conditioner company for the Dome to get air conditioning. So now that it's JMA, it's air conditioned.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
You guys get better what is that, marketing dollars from a non-air conditioning company.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Owen, again, really do appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And again, Wolfpack Nation, if you're interested at all in kind of hearing from the opponent's side, whatever it may be, make sure to check down Owen and Locked On Wolfpack on their Twitter page.
Locked On Syracuse.
Syracuse. Locked On Syracuse. Again, I'm so used to saying Wolfpack because we've worked with Ken Gibbs so many times with Locked On Wolfpack. So Locked On Syracuse. So again, at their Twitter handle, at @LO_Syracuse. And then also to make sure to find them on YouTube and anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Make sure to check them out there again at Locked On Syracuse. So again, appreciate you, Owen. But then from our side, make sure again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out whenever we release any new NC State content. And also to give this video a like if you're a huge NC State fan just like us. And also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much for your time. As always, go Pack, baby.